one of my mentors and like good friends said something to me once where he said like, look man, opportunities are like buses. You know, if you miss one, you just wait a couple minutes, another one's coming.
Hey, why did I do that?
You're opening your hands to open the episode. It's symbolic.
Welcome back, Modern Commerce subscribers. We're coming at you again this week with another fun topic. John is going to lead us a little bit through some of the recent history of launching e-commerce brands. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of the status quo, the present day, what brands are kind of launching, with what advantages they're launching with today. And we're going to kind of project into the future a little bit, what we think might be coming up, what we might tend to do if we were launching a brand in 2021. So, John, what's up, man?
How you doing, dude?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to have a good, fun episode. This was an idea you had about an episode, and I'm excited about it, man. There's a lot of history that I think you're going to cover that I'm not fully aware of, even though I participated in it as a viewer.
I mean, let's put a caveat on the word history and say it's like history of e-commerce. So like, you know, in the broad sense of history, it's not really history, it's pretty recent, but
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and I'm not even going to go back to the early days of e-commerce. Like there are some kind of OGs who were, you know, I'm not even going to go back to when like a lot of people were cracking into the print on demand space and doing that. But yeah. So I think like, you know, probably the biggest topic out there in terms of like people who like e-commerce people who aren't established yet is like, you know, hey, if you're launching a brand this year, if you're launching an e-commerce brand in 2021, how would you do it? What would you do? What kind of brand would you launch? What kind of products would you sell? How would you, you know, market it? Like, how would you get traffic? That kind of thing. And, you know, I think we're in an interesting situation because we have our agency. And so, you know, little plug for the agency. If you're an e-commerce founder and you're looking to grow via paid acquisition, link in the description for our agency, Explosive Growth Marketing. But we also have owned brands where Casey and I are not product people, right? But we have owned brands where we partner with product people or people who kind of have like, you know, all of the logistics of a brand, you know, product and a way to ship it and all of that stuff. And then we partner with them to like drive marketing and sales with them. These are brands that we actually have skin in the game on, and they're, you know, partially ours. So, very different than our agency clients. A lot of times our agency clients are established and they just need us to come in and be assassins on Facebook or Snapchat or something like that. Whereas, you know, the own brands are in this phase. Like they're maybe brands that are launching in 2021 or maybe 2020, but, you know, recent. So yeah, this is going to be a fun one, I think, to just talk about how would you launch an e-com brand in 2021? What do you think, Casey?
Yeah, you know, touching on what you said with the agency work we do and the different kind of structures we have, I feel like, you know, I don't consider myself like an entrepreneur, like not like a pure entrepreneur, but met a ton of them at this point. We've worked with a lot of them. I think you've got a lot more of that entrepreneurial spirit than I do. So for me, it's a little bit of a different perspective. And it feels to me like the more we meet, the more we've realized that different deal structures kind of help different brands at different stages of growth. Not always do you need some mercenary media buyer to go out there and go ROAS hunting for you. You might need somebody to kind of be a little more hands-on, or just a bunch of different things. So again, all the points you made there, we've had a good perspective on helping a lot of brands, and I think that's going to be quality assistant to kind of helping us through this discussion.
Yeah. So first let's get into like, so here's what I mean by this, right? So let's rewind and let's go like back 10 years. I hope that Zoom switched to you for that. You probably didn't make enough noise, but you guys didn't catch Casey's move. He just did a little rewind.
It's a pretty sweet reverse robot move, kind of.
So let's go back to, you know, maybe 2010, 2011. And this is kind of when the e-commerce boom maybe like started or just pre-start, like just around that point where like pretty much everyone started to have a smartphone, you know what I mean? And that was like really when the e-commerce boom started and people started actually being like comfortable on e-commerce sites on their phone. Like that was huge, right? Before that, it was like, you were mostly selling to people on desktops, right? That was what e-commerce was. And Not that a lot of people didn't make a lot of money doing that. Definitely people did, but e-commerce as we know it today. So 2010, 2011, what did it look like? So in that time, I would call that maybe the disruptor brand revolution. So from around 2010 to maybe even like 2014 was sort of the disruptor brand revolution. So what I mean by that is like an e-commerce brand disrupting a space that is like traditional, right? So think MVMT watches, think Casper mattresses, think Allbirds shoes, or maybe preceding Allbirds shoes a little bit, Tom's. Tom's wasn't e-commerce. Retail was their main channel. Of course, they sell online, but like Allbirds shoes, Tom's shoes, Pura Vida bracelets, kind of in that category. So those kind of the OGs of like the e-commerce like dream story that people talk about, where it's like they launched this brand, sold bracelets, and now they're like have this huge valuation. MVMT has a huge valuation, I think got acquired or something like that. So that kind of disruptor brand where they like MVMT watches was like, okay, look, you can go buy cheap watches or you can go buy like super expensive like Rolexes, right? And maybe there are watches out there that cost $300, but they're like not that nice, right? And what MVMT said is, we will give you the watch that is not as nice as the luxury watch. Now, it's not going to say Rolex on it, and that matters. I'm not one to say that that doesn't matter, but it will feel like a Rolex, and we will give it to you for a tenth of the cost of a Rolex, right? So that, Casper mattresses, same thing. That super high quality mattress that you'd pay thousands for at the mattress store. That's always having a 50% off sale and always going out of business. Like, we're going to give that to you for like a actually attainable cost, right?
Right.
So this is sort of the disruptor revolution, and then also cause-based, right?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, peek behind the curtain here a little bit. So on any given episode of these, we maybe have a little bit more than this sometimes, but sometimes only 5 to 10 minutes of like kind of prep time, where we just kind of chat a little bit before we start filming. And you used the term about these products that I liked a lot, and it was millennial luxury. Like when we can't afford the like traditional alternative, we go like MVMT watches or Casper mattresses, those kind of things.
Yes, yeah, the luxury product for the millennial. Because like my dad wants a luxury watch, he's buying a Rolex. If I want a luxury watch, I'm not buying a Rolex. And maybe now I would, but it would only be to own a Rolex, like not because I actually need it or would use it. So then the other thing that was happening in the disruptor space, two things kind of that are like marketed to me. So you have those that are like saying, hey, we're cutting out all of the 15 middlemen in the mattress game. So they cut out the middleman was kind of the big play. And then the other things that were really happening were cause-based brands. So this is Pura Vida bracelets, Tom's, Allbirds, does so many cause-based brands. And the other thing that was happening was crowdfunding. Crowdfunding kind of like caught fire around that time. Crowdfunding really predates that actually a little bit, but that's like when it really was like in its heyday, I would say.
Right. Would you say there's another thing that brought it up in our prep time too, like the mission-based brands, the ones like we'll plant a tree, we'll donate X amount.
Yeah, I'm gonna umbrella that in cause-based, mission-based. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a time when it was like, that was like just a super cool thing. You know what I mean? And being a disruptive brand was a super cool thing. Add to that you could crowdfund something, and then you have all of these brands that essentially could create disruptors, right? Like you had brands that could create, I think, I don't know if the Ridge wallet launched on Kickstarter, but stuff like that, that's like, it's just a wallet, could launch on Kickstarter. Now you try and launch a wallet on Kickstarter now, and it's like, that space is so disrupted. Like what are you going to do new with the wallet? Which we'll talk about that in a little bit. Like there's some plays there, but yeah, it's, it's just different, right? Like so now it's like more the like real true inventions that are killing it on those crowdfunding platforms.
I feel like just being like an English snob here, I feel like it's the opposite of disrupted now, because it got disrupted and it's kind of settled. You can't launch a new one now because you have to do something else to disrupt it at this point.
Exactly. Right. So, so there was that was like the disruptor revolution. And then following the disruptor revolution, I would say was like I don't know if this is the right time to talk about this, but there were brands that, well, no, I'll get to this in a second, actually. So following the disruptor revolution, I would say was the drop shipping revolution. And that was when, so during the disruptor revolution, it was still actually kind of hard to source product, right? You actually had to buy it in bulk, you had to warehouse it. You weren't there weren't as many 3PLs out there even. So like you might actually have to buy some, storage space somewhere and find somebody, some local kid to pay to pick and pack orders. Yeah, so like that was part of the disruption, was that there was kind of this like barrier to entry to be a disruptor, And then came the drop shipping space when e-commerce took off so much that suppliers of product realized, hey, if we make it really easy, looking at you, AliExpress, if we make it real easy to like essentially flip product, people will do it online. And so that was kind of the dropship revolution, where it was just like, yeah, find something on AliExpress or some other, sometimes it was, US based websites or whatever, supplier websites, and just throw up a site of your own, flip it, and then that created all kinds of problems. Like that was kind of felt like a get rich quick scheme, and its early phases really were that. Like it was crappy products, crappy customer service. It took 2 months to get to you, and it got to you, and it was just a joke, right? And then, I think that got parlayed into some legitimate businesses where they said, no, we're going to source good product. Like we're still going to do things that we don't warehouse and we're going to get, shipped for us, but we're going to do good products. So I think Udi was sort of born of that. So this is like the Udi, and that, given that's like a unique, a lot of what you saw in this time was like unique products, like out there products. Like, is Udi a disruptor in the blanket space? Like, nah, Snuggie had already kind of done that. They did a different take on it with the hoodie, but like, but it's cool. Like it's very visual. It's very, kind of like easy to look at. So Snow is sort of like the crossover from disruptor to like, cool new thing type of thing. So you saw a lot of those like cool new products take off during that time. And then, some of them figured out a way to like continue. The other thing that we saw take off during this time was made to order, right? So this was your print on demand t-shirts, print on demand, really anything, right? And now it's difficult to launch, but at that time you could launch a print on demand store where it was all made to order and it would ship directly from the customer. You never had to touch product, and sell $20, $30 t-shirts, and you could do so profitably, and sometimes scale. With Facebook and Instagram ads. So it was like kind of the heyday of Facebook and Instagram advertising, and like, low barrier to entry. So just all the low barrier to entry stuff, low barrier to entry to all you have to have is a credit card to advertise on Facebook. And then, all you have to do is create an account on a AliExpress or on a Teespring or something like that.
So I know you're going with kind of a timeline here. So where would you say that kind of, that section of time you just explained, where do you think that kind of boom tapered off and started to change into the next one? What year are we talking about here? Let me get a time.
Look, so all of this, there are still some of these things happening, right? But I would say it tapered off around, I'll say circa 2017, 18.
Right, because we're talking more specifically about new brands launching within this space, like with the same kinds of strategies. So like,
right, the same kind of
we're doing those things now as that time.
Right. So I would say that tapered off around 2017, 18. And then I think, and so then the brands that were successful in that space, yeah, they moved on. And so then I think what started happening is like 2017 and 18 was sort of 17, 18, 19, 2020 is its own unique thing I'll get to in a second.
Sure.
17, 18, 19 is the era of the iterative disruptor. So the iterator, not the disruptor. So this is when like Extra wallets hit. This is just some other brands like that, where it's like, hey, we're, the Ridge was the disruptor in the wallet space, but Extra has done this new thing that's really, really cool. You know what I mean? Or just the iterators, if that makes sense. So another good example here is like, the OG and like the kind of party games space is probably not Can Jam. Let me go back. So like CrossNet Can Jam.
Spike Ball, right? Is that the one you're?
Spike Ball, no, pre-Spike Ball. Cornhole. Yeah, Cornhole is probably like the OG in like the party game space, right? And they even launched in a way that wasn't like, they were launched in retail. You know, but then and still I would say this space is heavy retail, but like you got, you know, Cornhole, and then Spike Ball got big, and then you have like now Cam Jam got big after that, CrossNet's starting to get big now, you know, so it's like the 2017 area, kind of the era of the iterator, where you could kind of iterate on the disruptor and launch a brand successfully. And the reason that happened was because the iterator founder started to realize that the disruptor wasn't solely a product-centric brand all the time, right? So sometimes they are, right? Cornhole is a product-centric brand. If it, you know, it probably isn't under, but like, yeah, you know, Cornhole is made by all kinds of people, but Spike Ball, it's a product-centric brand. You know, and they might make other things like that, but like it's all kind of self-contained products where, you know, MVMT watches evolved, right? They started out as this disruptor in the watch space, but now they're just like a men's lifestyle brand. They're just a men's accessory. They sell everything. They sell sunglasses. They sell everything, right? Chubbies, same thing. They kind of like started out as this like, you know, frat boy, like short shorts, like, you know, be the dude wearing the shorts everyone comments on at your, you know, at your party, at your kegger, like, and then now they're like just a men's fashion brand, right? Like, so they started out as a disruptor, Ridge Wallet, same thing, you know, and then they parlayed that into being a market-centric brand that people buy from over and over. The iterator saw this and they saw, oh yeah, like maybe I don't need to be as crazy profitable as they were in the beginning. And maybe I don't need to go to Amazon and retail and all these things. But if I can just create an iterative product in that space that gains some traction and you know, gets me some cash flow, then I can create a market-centric. I can like launch that into a market-centric brand.
And another thing that comes to mind when you bring that up, especially with the fashion, you're talking about these iterative brands. A couple that come to mind are like those fashion brands where it's like a subscription model where they basically tell you they know your style better than you. Like, I think one of the first ones that comes to my mind is kind of like MeUndies. Like they were like, oh, we've got bold prints all the time. We'll just send you stuff we know you're going to like. Then you see it across all different kinds of things like Stitch Fix and 500 other different things exactly like
that. Was like an iteration on the DTC, on the Disruptor Evolution.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, sorry. You paused that for a second. Yeah, so then I think that happened. So and this is where I would say, like, I think they really noticed this because there were some brands that killed it in the Disruptor Revolution that just died, like did crazy numbers. So, I mean, we worked with a brand that did some of the largest campaigns in its category ever on Kickstarter. Like it has like 2 of the top 10 in a really competitive category on Kickstarter campaigns of all time. And it's fizzled now. Like it's just not really a thing anymore. And, you know, or we work with some brands that really grew at like this incredible rate, being cause-based or mission-based, right? Planting a tree, that kind of thing. And then they just fizzled because they didn't make the moves to like really create a community and become a market-centric brand that people bought from over and over.
Right. When you make a business, when you launch a brand based off of being disruptive, was disruptive in 2015 is no longer disruptive in 2021, no matter what it was, basically.
Right, exactly. So you have to evolve if you want that to continue to be a brand, or you take your money and run. So yeah, so I think that was kind of 17, 18, 19, 20, 17, 18, 19, kind of the age of the iterator. So you had and really a mix, right? So you had some people kind of doing a drop ship type thing, some people kind of doing an iteration type thing. Also the white label supplement brand, you know, kind of in that area. So sort of made kind of a crossover of that made to order, like I don't have to formulate this new supplement. I can just white label a supplement that already exists and sell it, you know, so that kind of era where it's like, oh, you know, barrier to entry was really high, barrier to entry got really low. Okay, now we got to raise it a little bit again in order to be a successful brand. So 2020, its own thing. I think a lot of brands that launched and were successful in 2020, some brands are not going to like hearing this. did so because of a market situation that is an outlier. And that's not to say that those brands can't be successful long-term. It's too soon to know how, but you know, the home fitness space, for example, went wild in 2020. I mean, I was working with a brand at the time that they didn't sell anything special at all. They sold like you know, kettlebells and just stuff like that, you know, all the stuff everybody already knows about. And they were running at crazy ROAS, you know, in April of 2020, because everyone's like, oh, I'm getting fat, you know, like, and everyone was inside in the US. So that, I think, you know, a lot of brands enjoyed like a really crazy growth, and a lot of people became more comfortable buying online during this time. So I think a lot of brands enjoyed this really crazy growth or gained traction and got on like crazy, really good run rates due to a market situation that may not really always be the case. And it remains to be seen, but, you know, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I thought of another example kind of opposite of home fitness, but I saw a spike in that too. Like we have a Peloton in my house, and yeah, yep. Users went through the roof there. People are buying Pelotons.
Oh, I would call that home fitness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I was going to say a little broader maybe in 2020 is just things that typically didn't belong in the home quite as traditionally, like an exercise bike, or like the other big example I thought of was air fryer. You know, like before 2020, was there a huge need to have the capability to fry something in your house if you weren't already doing a bunch of cooking? No. But in 2020, you still miss that fried food. How are you going to get it? Like,
home office stuff, you know, crazy, right? Travel, bad time to be in a travel brand in 2020, right? So like, you know, but so this remains to be seen, but this is very interesting to me is that we'll probably see a market correction on this, right? Like, you know, home fitness probably won't have as good of a year in 2021. Travel will probably have a much better year. So if you're selling luggage, you know, good news in 2021. But I think what remains to be seen is like, are we just going to kind of renormalize back to where we were on 2018 in the world of e-commerce? Or are we going to overcorrect and it's like going to become very hard to be a home fitness brand because it's like people are like, I'm sick of working out in my home, not buying this, you know? Or will we also like see a lot of like the types of brands that worked badly last year? Like, actually fashion struggled a little bit last year and some of them pivoted nicely to like have some like, oh, here's like nice clothes that are comfy, you wear at home type of thing. But fashion struggled a bit last year, like makeup, like things that make you look good, struggled a little bit last year. Are we going to see a course correction where those things just go wild this year? And we see the same thing in 2020, but in different industries, right? Where it's like, hey, you launch a luggage brand this year and you get on a crazy run rate super quick if you've got some kind of differentiator on your luggage, you know? Who knows, right? So it could happen. But that's not, if I were launching a brand in 2021, that's probably not the way I would go. That's just, it is a way, right? So maybe try and lean into the market correction if you're launching this year, but be aware that you might be leaning into an overcorrection that will then re-correct, right?
Right. So
there's some home fitness brands right now that I work with that are like feeling the burn of the market correction.
So you're starting to touch on some differentiators that could lend brands an advantage in launching in 2021 now. Any other like, you know, ones you can think of note that you kind of toss out there before you kind of get to what you more specifically would do if you, John, were launching a brand?
Yeah, this is a good point. So I think, what can you do in 2021? So I think that in terms of life cycles, we may still be in the age of the iterator. So if you can actually come up with a new way, a new like true, awesome, unique selling proposition on a product or in a product category, you can play there. Understand though that if you launch something that's a product-centric brand, so I mean, I actually see these all the time, right? Like there's one we're working with right now that's kind of like a tool for your home that like helps you do like, you know, people who aren't super handy do things to like work on their plumbing, right? Like that's super cool, you know? But understand if you're a product-centric brand, like you either parlay that into being a market-centric brand or you make your money while you can, the knockoffs come and you're out, right? So that's one thing, you know, to be aware of if you are kind of still in the age of the iterator. I do think there are still some spaces left to be disruptive. And, you know, of course, being the conceited person that I am, I believe that one of the brands that we work with in our holding, you know, portfolio, our own brands, Casey, I actually think is in the disruptor space. And I've told you about this.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I agree with you on that. I didn't know if you wanted to let the cat out of the bag on that or
well,
not.
I don't, yeah. I will say that if you think you actually are a disruptor in your space, maybe don't tell people what space you're in, but
they know attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say though.
I got him, guys. I got him on that one.
Here's actually the litmus test, I think, is if you use disruptor messaging in your ads. So, you know, what does that mean? So like in 2013, 2014, disruptor messaging looked like, oh, we plant a tree for every order, you know, or it looked like, hey, we're cutting out the middle, you know, like that thing I just said, like, yeah, it used to be Rolex, and now we give you a Rolex for a better cost, like we give you one on a beer budget type of messaging. Or like, you know, Ridge Wallets was like, hey, your dad's wallet gave him back problems, like be better than that. So like that disruptor messaging, if that actually like works for you and you see like, oh my gosh, right away, I'm getting very good results with this disruptor messaging in this market, you actually might have a true disruptor. There are a few spaces left that can be disrupted. I was talking with a friend recently who believes he's in one of them, and he's publicly stated what it is, and hits it's the condiments space, or condiments niche, I guess. So he's like, I think that's still left to be disrupted. And so he's launching a disruptor there, and he said it publicly, so I'm not letting the cat out of the bag on him. But yeah, like there are some left. So there's an option there, but that's the litmus test. If you use the disruptor messaging of like, hey, here was the old way and here's now like the better way, and it kills it, you might be there.
I like that litmus test. I think it makes a lot of sense. That triggers a question that I think you might have the answer to. So whether you are like a pure disruptor or kind of that iterative kind of Me Too type of brand jumping on, obviously either way you have to kind of make the shift to market-based if you want to survive. But just in launching phase, I wonder, can a product-based brand, can it not be truly disruptive, but fall under like disruptive or iterative by just marketing? You know what I mean? Just a different spin on a traditional kind of product. I don't have a great example, but I could.
Yeah, I have a great example actually, and yes, but it's not easy, you know. But yes, I'm gonna course correct on one thing you just said, and that is, if you launch a disruptor brand, you have to like kind of ride that into being a market-centric brand. Not always, but if you don't ride it into being a market-centric brand, you have to be very aware that you're a product-centric brand, and the way you scale and grow and sustain in a product-centric brand is distribution channels. So even if you start direct to consumer, you're going to have to get into retail, you're going to have to get into Amazon. Like Casper mattresses, there are a few disruptors in the mattress space. You got like Casper, Purple, Sleep Number, right? Like that are like, look, these are the disruptor mattresses. You can't launch a disruptor brand there now because they own it. They're everywhere.
Right, saturated.
Yeah, so that's if you're not going to parlay it into being a market-centric brand like an MVMT, like you can still launch a men's accessories brand now because MVMT didn't go that way, or you can launch a watch brand now because MVMT didn't go that way. But if you're not going to do that kind of thing MVMT did, where you go market-centric, you've got to just fill up that market as quickly as you can.
Sure.
And so, yeah, like I even have like the brand we're working with right now, I'm like, we need to figure out real quick if we actually can make this market centric or if we need to just like lean into this space and fill it up. So yeah, and then your other question was, sorry.
Can you do it purely with just a marketing spin?
Right, yeah, but I do have a good example of that. So Blissy pillowcases, they're silk pillowcases. This is not a new product, right? Like, they're silk pillowcases, and they have marketing angles that are very creative. Like for example, they have one advertorial they run that I think the title of it, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but I think the title of it is something along the lines of like, you know, I saw a celebrity sleeping on a plane and it's changed the way I sleep forever, you know, and something like that. And then it goes into this whole thing about how like this celebrity's beauty secret was her silk pillowcases, and you know, she has this amazing skin because she uses them and stuff like that. Miracle Sheets is one doing this right now. Like, you know, I don't know what their materials are. It's like something like bamboo or something like that. It's a blend. I'm gonna butcher it, and I have connections to people at Miracle, and they're gonna, you know, be mad at me for this. But yeah, like I'm sure their sheets are great, but you know, how proprietary is their blend? It's probably proprietary, but there are probably others that are also really good. But you know, they have some very strong, unique marketing angles. To take a product that maybe isn't that disruptive, it's iterative, right? Like it is the maybe next phase of sheets, but you can't just say like, look, these sheets are better because they have this, this, and this, and those blends and this formula make this. Like, people don't want that. They want like, yeah, I used to freaking sweat through my bed every night, and then I started using these sheets and I sleep like a dang baby, right? So yeah, like that's, you know, there's good marketing there. Or like, you know, a story of I used to sweat through my bed every night, and then I went to stay with my sister-in-law and my whole world changed. I used to get back knee, and now I never get back knee anymore, right? Like, just a different way to say like, oh, I used to get back knee. Sheets, like, different angle to it. But I do think you have to be at least a little, like, silk pillowcases is a good one because it's like not even that iterative, honestly, right? But you know, maybe a disruptor in the sense that there weren't any really strong pillowcase companies at the time, but they were able to use a really strong, unique marketing angle to become the disruptor in that space.
Sure, that makes sense. I just wondered if you could, that's pretty good. We didn't prep for that. You thinking quick on your feet. I like that. All right, so I want to keep this moving along. We got a little time crunch here. So John, more specifically now, if you were to launch a brand, you know, what specific kind of things do you see as being an advantage, and what would you do?
Okay, so from a product perspective, let me start there. From a product perspective, I don't necessarily say that I'm gonna make, like, I'm not gonna say like I'm gonna go into a certain niche or something like that. Because I'm a marketing guy and I'm not a product guy, I'm not a logistics guy, I'm not a fulfillment guy. If I'm starting a brand, I'm either gonna have a partner who is that and has the resources to cash flow that, or we combined have the resources to cash flow that without stretching ourselves out too much. Like, you know, I'm not draining the retirement fund and the kids' college fund and all that to fund this, like, you know, brand that I'm taking a flyer on. So yeah, if I don't have that from a resource perspective, then I'm gonna look for something on the product side where I can partner with, like, use the connections I have, or partner with something, or create a situation where I'm not taking too much risk on product development. Now, I don't want to go drop ship from AliExpress or some provider because, one, my margin isn't there, and two, there's just no real like differentiation in those products. Anybody can do it, right? So that's the second point on the product space is I do want some very true differentiation in my product. So this is a good example of why we partner with the product people, because we're not the product people.
Sure.
And we partner with the logistics people because we're not the logistics people.
Right.
You know, and so yeah, that's the first thing I'm going to look for is I'm going to look for, like, can I find, you know, some unique way to do the made to order thing? Like, oh my gosh, here's a great example. I don't have permission to say what his brand is, but a good friend of mine who works in an agency I consult with, he has a brand that's like it's a jewelry brand, but it's a custom, like, you know, it's a custom made jewelry brand. It's all made to order because he like knows the jeweler who does it, right? So it's like he just like knows a dude who can do these things, and he just is like, hey, well, look, I can sell a bunch of them. And yeah, so like if you can find some angle like that, like, yeah, I've thought before, like I have a sister-in-law who's like a really good artist at like this very unique, specific, like not common kind of art. And I'm like, I could sell hers, but like she can only make like one every week, so it wouldn't be worth it. And she does collages, so she like takes a whole bunch of magazine clippings and like makes it into like a legit picture. That's super cool. But yeah, no, so like I would try and find something like that from a product perspective where I can like get it made to order. I just don't have to take too much risk, but there still is some actual truly unique thing about this product, some actual, even if it is just an iterator, you know, even if it isn't, you know, anything too crazy, like, you know, can I find like, hey, like you know, these shirts like are super cool because of this and this and this, or, you know, they're waterproof or whatever, and do it without like outlaying too much risk. So that's number one. And number two is on that unique thing, you know, from a product perspective, I do kind of want it to be visual, right? Like people can see, you know,
Sure.
it just makes it easier. And then the next thing I'm going to do from a marketing perspective is I'm going to come up with those angles, right? So I do want it to actually have a little differentiation, but then I'm going to come up with those miracle sheets, those blissy pillowcases angles that are like really out there, you know, in order to like test it, right? Like test, can I just use the visualness of the product and is that enough? Or do I have to do the, you know, saw the celebrity wearing this shirt and it changed my life type of thing, or something like that, right? So that's kind of my first stages of launch is I'm gonna do that from a product perspective and a logistics perspective, so I don't have to take too much risk there, but I do want, and I'm willing to actually take some risk there and outlay some resource, right? Like I'm not trying to do the drop ship thing where there's literally no barrier to entry. I don't think that's a good way to go in 2021.
Right, sure. When you first pitched this this episode idea to me, you explained that it would be kind of similar to our business draft idea. Like, what would we do? And we're not drafting anything. By the way, if you haven't seen that episode, go ahead and click over here somewhere and watch it. After you finish this video, of course, rewind back to here and go click on that card. But I did think of one kind of example, not so much like a principle to build around like what you have, but one kind of thing on the horizon that I see that could be huge coming up, because I'm kind of a comfort buyer, and this is within the like the apparel, like the fashion kind of vertical, because that's kind of always going to be around, right? Like gets disrupted over and over and over again, kind of. And being that kind of comfort buyer, you know, there was something to that, like, we know your style better than you think, subscription model, where they're just saying, oh, I don't have to think about it. That's great.
Yeah, like you've actually bought some of that.
Yeah, a little bit. Sure. Yeah, I did. Kind of get, you know, it has its pluses and minuses. And then the next version of that, at least on my radar that popped up, was like, you know, on Amazon, you can buy something and you can buy 10 things and send back whatever you didn't like. And, you know, don't even charge you the shipping. I like that too. I do plenty of that now. The next thing that I see that's super huge in that lane is that like augmented reality, virtual reality kind of thing where, you know, you set your phone down, it knows your dimensions perfectly. So when you do go to order, you don't even have to worry about that returns. As easy as that is and as convenient as that is, this is the next level up. I haven't done all my R&D on it. Like I said, we take a little bit of prep time, and this is all didn't look up. There might be somebody killing it doing that already, but they haven't crossed my you know, my field of vision yet. So somebody's going to do it if they haven't already. I think that'll be huge.
So yeah, I mean, I'm looking for from the product side, something that truly is a little bit unique as a product, and is like, let's just work from the assumption of like, this is a very high quality product that like when people get it and use it, they're like when people get it, from the moment they get it, they're gonna be like super happy about it, right? They're gonna use it, they're gonna be super happy about it. Like I'm not just sending people things that they don't use. You know, and so yeah, and this could look like even in the supplement space or consumable space, like it doesn't have to be a crazy new idea, just like a new take. And then, you know, when people get it, they actually really enjoy it and they really want to buy it again. Like I don't even have to trick them into a subscription. Like they actually just want to come back and buy from me.
Sure.
You know, if it's a consumable. So, and the reason I'm saying that is because if it's not a consumable, so a consumable in and of itself is maybe not a market-centric brand. It's maybe product-centric, although it could be market-centric too. You know, on it's pretty market-centric. But like, you know, it has a built-in LTV because you use it, it's gone, you need more of it. And if it's good, people want to buy more of it, even if it's not a subscription. If I'm not doing something like that, so let's say I'm doing, you know, what we're talking about, I'm doing some kind of art, or I'm doing clothing, or I'm doing something like that. Like, you don't have to be like crazy inventive. Like you just have, you know, come up with a new take, but then I want something that lends to high lifetime values. And you know, read that as probably something that is a little market centric, right? And so like, you know, one of the best brands that I can think of that I think is very startable even in 2021 is it's a baby brand we work with, and their products are legit. They are very good, you know, when you use them. And so like, but really what they care about is their community, right? Like they just care about about moms and about their children. And as such, they cannot give them a product. Like they cannot in good conscience give them a product that isn't super legit and they wouldn't use themselves. Right. And so that's kind of the direction I would go here, is like really a community-based brand where I can say like, I know my people, right? Like I know my people and they know me. And I've got a Facebook group of, oh my gosh, there's a, a brand, Piper Lou. They've just got like this Facebook group of like these just rowdy, like awesome women, you know what I mean? That just buy their stuff and love them, and they love their people and their people love them. Diesel Brothers are another good example, or the Diesel Power Gear, another good example. They know their people, they love their people love them. The baby brand I just said. So that's really the direction I'd want to go. It's like this kind of very community-based brand that has really good products. But the way I would want to penetrate that is because, like, if you just go, like, when nobody knows you at first, it's actually going to be pretty hard to penetrate into that space unless one of your resources is that you're like an influencer or something like that. So to penetrate into that, that's where I'd be looking for some product, some SKU with a little bit of a differentiator, or the ways to differentiate that product and SKU. Because essentially, like, what I'm playing on here is like, I know my people, I know this product is amazing, and I know when my people get this product, even if I had to get a little marketing to sell it to them, they're going to be pretty happy that I get that, and they're going to want to buy from me again. And if I know my people, I probably am getting a little marketing in the right way. You know what I mean? In a way that they're not offended by or invaded by or something like that. So that's it. I would really be looking at like a community, but that's me, that's not everybody. Some people are still launching disruptor brands, product-centric brands, but it's because I'm a marketing guy and I just see so much value in like high LTV, high and fast LTVs, right? Like when your LTV doubles it within 3 months and your first order value is already high, like there's magic in that, because even when the traffic platforms aren't, I'm a paid ads guy, so when the traffic platforms aren't killing it for you, you're still doing okay, right? Because you've got people who buy from you and people care about your brand.
Yeah, man, I get it. That's wise work.
Yeah, and there's like, I think you vibe with that, and I think there's a reason we worked with together. You vibe with that because there is a certain market that you like really dig working in. Like they're kind of your people,
Yeah,
so
no.
Whenever we get a brand in that market, you're like, I like this. I know how to talk to these people. I like these people.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I've heard you talk plenty of times about. I mean, if you do have a crazy new, like a new tech device or something that's just unlike anything else product-wise, I mean, it's relatively easy to get wins with something like new like that. But yeah, assuming you aren't going to go like the route of the different distribution channels, if you're kind of staying in the e-commerce lane, it is easier to eventually leverage that into the market-centric brand, even if you started as product-centric. And I guess that's where a lot of my ideas, they tend to do what you're saying. Like, we know our people so much. Like, the people who know me already, like, hey, we get it. You don't know what you're going to want. You don't want to go to the store. We want to send you 10 pieces. You keep 2. Send us back the 8. We'll cover that shipping. Great. I'm like, I respect you guys. Know me so much as a customer. That's exactly what I want to do. I appreciate that. Same. That's kind of why I asked with the can you do this just marketing angles? Because I'm not a personal user of makeup, but from just like from a distance, I'm looking at it like, it seems to me like makeup, every 6 months they kind of go through a new cycle of like, this is just a new rebranding almost. This mascara is volumizing, and then next time it's like, oh no, now you've got the sleek. Like
makeup leans into people a lot, right? So you got influencers, celebrities. That leans into people a lot to just like, we need the trust so that you actually believe all these things we're saying, which it's not bad, but it's what it is. But yeah, like, so then let's talk about launch. Like, how would I launch this from like a traffic perspective? How would I get my initial sales? So number one, I would want to start getting initial sales like as organically as possible. So I'm not trying to like, say, go head up every friend and family, but like, if I'm launching a brand, I want to believe in it enough that anyone who it is relevant to, I'm like, yeah, you should get this, and so like, that's actually one of my litmus tests for the brands that we work with on own brands. Like if I ran across somebody who'd be, like who's a golfer, I would be like, oh yeah, you should go check out this site. Like it's, you know, you might like some of the stuff there, you know, or something like that, or anyone who's a, you know, whatever it is that we're in, like anyone who's kind of like a diesel person, right? Or something like that, we don't work with the diesel guys, but like, you know, we work in some similar markets. So yeah, like I would probably want to get initial traction as organically as possible. You know, and I might even do a little bit of influencer seeding with micro influencers early on, just to see if they would post it when I sent it to them, depending on how expensive the product was. But none of that's scalable. So like those would be kind of my like hustle plays if I had a lot of time. So it depends on what my resource is. So if my resource is like, I don't have a lot of time, I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a big following myself, I don't have any of that stuff, but I do have a lot of time, that would be my hustle, man. I would just be hitting up micro influencers. I'd be hitting up, who can I put this product in the hands of? Who can I like, how can I reach people for cheap or free, you know, and get them to post about it, you know, or something like that. So that would be kind of my launch strategy there, and just really focus on, even when the community's not big, keep like, just know that you love your people and your people love you. So even when the community's not big, just nurturing it, right? Like that would be my focus if what I had was time. Now, what I had was money. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, even in the e-commerce world, a lot of the old-fashioned rules remain the same. You know, the best marketing is word of mouth, you know, I mean, especially at scale. And on the internet, I don't know that there's too many platforms where there isn't some kind of algorithmic organic lift that, you know, organic sales will help perpetuate too. I mean, you can muscle your way through a lot of phases of growth, maybe with a ton of ad spend if you have that.
Yep.
But if you don't, I mean, that organic growth is what you need. It's got to be a good product, and you'll get that like social proof and stuff like that organically if it's good.
Yeah. So then, yeah, if my resource is money, like I have, and I talked to a brand like this today that is in the consumable space. So think about penetration the way that I'm talking about it, whether it's a consumable or a physical product. You know, the extent to which you have to like really stretch that differentiator and focus in on that differentiator is the extent to which your marketing dollars must be efficient. But you can get really high quality customers by being very straightforward in your marketing. They're just going to be more expensive. Does that make sense? Should I say that again in a different way? Like, yeah. So I'll give you the example that I'm thinking of. I was talking to a brand today. They're a consumable, super cool product, you know, but they, you know, I was like, what is your, you know, I'm going to use a couple terms here. So I'm like, so what's your MER need, right? Like, what do you need to be from an MER perspective? Or I asked them first their generalized product margins. So they're like, yeah, we have about a 60% margin, right? Gross margin. It's like, okay, so what kind of MER do you need? I'm expecting them to say 2 or 3. So your MER, for those who don't know, is your total revenue divided by your ad dollars, your ad spend, right? So if you made $300,000 and you spent $100,000, your MER is 3. And I'm expecting them to say something like that, 2 or 3. And this is the case with a lot of consumables. It's like they have a good product, but they're usually not profitable on the first purchase. So they're acquiring as many customers as they can, but they can only scale as high as their MER can bring them. And that's also the case with a lot of market-centric brands, right? Where it's like, you know, we're only going to scale as high as like the generalized sales that we're going to get. And these guys said, oh, if we're at a 0.5 MER during this growth phase, that's fine. A 0.5, meaning they are willing to spend $200,000 to make $100,000 this month. You know, but they're, you know, they've got a really strong product that people keep buying every month for like, you know, a really long time. And that's why they're doing it, right? And the resource they have is cash. They have an investor who has cash. And so they're like, let's just, you know, accelerate this thing. So yeah, if I have cash, then I'm probably not even going to get too crazy with my marketing angles. I'm just going to buy my way into the marketing. And then if you're in the situation I'm in where it's like, I don't really have a lot of time, I have some time and I have some cash, but I don't have a ton of either. Then that's when I'm going to focus in on my marketing capability, my marketing skill. And I'm going to say, all right, how can I, you know, use paid traffic or use more time efficient marketing methods like influencer outreach, or you're coming up with like a, you know, a true influencer outreach strategy that I can offload or something like that, and come up with the right angles, the right marketing angles, the right differentiators, the right site experience, and optimize my way into an efficient enough spend while also focusing on, you know, creating that community that I can sell to over and over.
And if you're somebody like that who has to rely on some, maybe even some DIY kind of marketing stuff for your brand, but you got to do it efficiently, you might be a perfect kind of subscriber for a certain YouTube channel called Modern Commerce.
Yes. So
I hear those guys do some great work, and they give you lots of tips.
Cool dudes, and like, oh, and also, you know, they're extremely good looking and they're really good athletes.
Yeah, and they'll force in a sports analogy, just like freaking Giannis taking it to the paint or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say we didn't mention that I won my rec league basketball championship this last week. So, you know, we got anyone who's still watching at this point, now you know that about me. But yeah, no, I think that more or less covers it. So like my launch strategy is going to depend a lot upon like what is the resource I have and who am I, right? So that's why like where we partner with a lot of people are like we partner with those product people, those logistic people, those people who are like I know my people and then my people know me and I'm passionate about the market. But I don't really know how to make my ad dollars the right amount of efficient for the amount of ad dollars I have. Right. And that's like where we come in and say like, yeah, well, we can probably get you on that growth path profitably.
Awesome. Yeah, man, I got to admit, when you first tossed this subject up, I thought it was kind of nebulous. I didn't 100% get where you're going with it, but I'm glad we went through it. This has been great. You really led us down a good conversation here. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope everybody else out there enjoyed it. So John, all right, this is it. This is the time, man. This is your parting shot. Take it away.
Yes. Okay. Actually, so one of the maybe thing I didn't cover is launching an e-commerce. If I'm launching an e-commerce brand in 2021, I hit on this in a lot of categories. Like I don't want to like lay myself out too far on the product side. I don't want to lay myself out too far on the marketing side. Like I want to lean into the resources I have. I don't want to try and like overinvest time or cash or something. And the reason is because like the biggest thing I'm going to do is like, I'm not going to get too married to a brand that I'm launching unless I realize that I'm doing that, right? So like, I actually have a brand idea of something I want to launch. It's very off for me because it's like, it's not necessarily something I see as a money-making opportunity. It's more like something I'm very passionate about that I see a very good possibility that I might never make money on. So unless it's something like that, where it's like, yeah, look, like this is just a glorified hobby. I don't want to lay myself out too far because I want to be able to say, look, I'm willing to get this far into this thing from a cash perspective or from a time perspective. And if I'm not at this point, I'm willing to walk away, right? And so like thinking about it a little bit like an affiliate, or not that I, want to have the affiliate mindset, but like, if I invest this much into this thing and I don't start to see the traction I want, and I'm going to kind of define the traction I want to see at that point, then I'm okay walking away, because one of my mentors and like good friends said something to me once where he said like, look, man, opportunities are like buses. If you miss one, just wait a couple minutes, another one's coming, and so don't like, if you're really starting from scratch right now, like, man, I think it's always maybe like a little bit of a red flag when a founder's like, I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And that's, I'm not against that, but don't pour your blood, sweat, and tears into something that's just completely unproven yet, right? Like pour your blood, sweat, and tears into it when you're like, I've got something here. You know what I'm saying? So like, sometimes it's a little bit of a red flag when they're like, I poured my blood, sweat, and tears in this thing and they haven't even made their first sale yet. But I don't know. I know some people who make it work, but that's always a struggle of a place to be in because you're emotionally connected to it and you're afraid to pivot, you're afraid to move on if you need to move on, and you're like not taking those logic signals. So that's probably the biggest thing that I would do as like a marketing guy, e-commerce guy. But people who are product people or market people, they don't always have that same mindset, and that's actually okay, right? Like e-commerce needs all of us.
Well said, John. I definitely couldn't have said it better myself. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Hope you made it this far into the video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so that you get notified whenever we post new content. We do one of these a week, sometimes maybe a little more. We might flirt with some new formats, new fun things, might toss up some clips here and there. Let us know. But As always, until next time, we'll see you.